Agnew.
Thank you very much. Well, there are probably three separate topics in here. The first is the preservation of soil structure. And you're quite right. If you don't plough and you have the min-till, you will preserve the structure. And by structure, I mean the ratio of soil particles, water and air in the soil should be 33% each. And it's much easier to achieve this in a no-till situation. And it, of course, saves an enormous amount of money if you can get this right, an enormous amount of energy, a big reduction in horsepower required on the farm. And I've been shown a number of farms recently on heavy land. What I call heavy land is land with a high clay content, which is prone to problems with soil structure. And because of the advances in agricultural mechanisation, we now have reliable machinery that can put seeds into the soil where there is a lot of surface trash. It's impressive what the machinery sector has done, and farmers now have the confidence to use this. However, they need glyphosate in order to make this work. Without glyphosate, they will have to go back to cultivating the soil, allowing earthworms to be eaten by seagulls, allowing water to come onto disturbed land, making the structure difficult. Glyphosate is the key here, and there's nothing wrong with it. Now, we move on to the idea of soil being what they call a carbon sink. And yes, there's no doubt that if you keep incorporating the straw instead of getting rid of it, you will build up the amount of organic matter in the soil. Now, that will steadily break down into humus, and because the soil has got a good structure, it allows air and oxygen in, and that humus will combine with the oxygen to produce the CO2, which will then work its way out through the nicely structured soil back into the atmosphere. You cannot stop this cycle. All you can do is slightly increase the amount that's held in the soil on a temporary basis. So you're not going to achieve more than a very small amount like that. Anyway, what's wrong with CO2 plants needed? Another section of your presentation talked about the emission of greenhouse gases. There are 5 of those. Yes, plants do emit water vapour, the biggest of all greenhouse gases. They emit that through transpiration. But we need water vapour. We need this greenhouse gas. We need the water vapour as cloud cover to drop rain. We have to have that. Plants don't emit CO2. They absorb it. On the other hand, CO2 is emitted in the establishment of crops and the fertiliser that's put on them. Plants, leguminous plants, emit nitrous oxide. Well, we are being encouraged in the European Union to plant more leguminous crops. So we're being encouraged to emit more nitrous oxide. At the same time, we're being told to cut greenhouse gases. This makes no sense at all, particularly with the Green lobby saying, oh, we must grow more protein crops. There are so many contradictions in here. Then, of course, there's methane. Well, methane is produced from rotting material in the presence of water. So we keep the straw on the land, it rains, it will emit methane. We can't stop that. You might be able to slow it up by ploughing, but by ploughing you're going to spoil the structure. We go round and round in a circle. And ozone, of course, the final greenhouse gas, is not really involved in agriculture, and apparently there's a crisis with not enough of it, so we can forget about that. The Green lobby say go to organic agriculture, but if you move to organic agriculture, you will need more land. And I will wrap up there, Chairman, because you want me to. Thank you.
Mr. Agnew has asked for the floor once more. 1.5 minutes max.
I've asked for the floor again because the former speaker, Mr. Andrew, whose name is a little bit like mine, said there should be limits. There are limits to the pesticides you can use and glyphosate, etc. There are limits. And can I reiterate again, you cannot have it both ways. If you cannot use pesticides, herbicides to control weeds, you have to disturb the soil. If you disturb the soil, you make it prone to a weakness in soil structure. Particularly if it rains heavily, you then find you cannot establish the crop. We've seen this year after year after year. If you want to produce enough food, you have to make agriculture as efficient as you can get. And the Green lobby, their solution will mean we will not have enough land to do it. We will then have to go onto your hill land, your peatland, in order to have enough land to produce crops. We may not relish using herbicides, but unfortunately they are a necessary evil. Simple as that.